Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar brought to you by eAssist Dental Solutions. We're so glad that you're here and ready for this timely and important topic on why do I need to know about cybersecurity and AI? Well, the answer is because in today's dental world, protecting patient data, keeping up with evolving technology isn't just a nice to have, it's a must have. And so we're lucky to have Anne-Marie DePalma with us today. She's incredibly qualified to walk us through what we're going to talk about today, and she brings decades of experience into dentistry as a hygienist, an educator, a consultant, and a software trainer. She is a fellow in multiple dental organizations and a proud recipient of the prestigious Esther Wilkins Distinguished Alumni Award of Forsyth. So Anne-Marie has a genuine passion for helping dental professionals grow, and today she's going to cover what every dental team needs to know about cybersecurity threats, HIPAA compliance, and how AI is already shaping the way we work and care for patients. Let's get started. Anne-Marie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Jacqueline. Thank you for that introduction and welcome, everyone. I'm glad you all decided to join today. So, where are we going to be going? Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the basic HIPAA requirements. Now, you all have had some HIPAA training, hopefully, in your office annually. So, we'll just cover some of the basics. And then we'll go into cybersecurity and some of the things that are facing dentistry. And then from there, we're going to look at artificial intelligence, what it is, where it came from, some of its strengths and weaknesses, and how we're using it in dentistry. Now, I want to let you know that you may see some products in this presentation, and I am in no way affiliated with any of the companies that you're going to be seeing. So, one day you're at the office and you get a phone call, and it happens to be your office manager on the other end. And she happens to be at Walmart, and she wants to know, I got an email from our doctor that said go to Walmart and buy a bunch of Walmart gift cards to give to out to patients whenever, whether your practice is late or a thank you gift or whatever. And I'm at Walmart. I just don't know how many to buy, first of all, and how much. $5, $10, $25. What should I get? So you're answering the phone and you're going, oh, I never heard of anything like this. And so you go back to the doctor, and the doctor says, oh, wait a minute. I didn't send that email. Tell the office manager to come on back to the office and don't buy anything. Well, what happened was the office manager had gotten an email that was actually a phishing attempt, and that whoever had sent that email had wanted those gift cards and sent to them with the serial numbers. So just think about that. Think about what would happen in your office if that actually happened. So, how did we get here today in dentistry in terms of technology? A lot of us have practice management softwares in our practice or the PMSs in our practice. How did we get to use going from paper to electronic charting and maintenance of our practices? So in 2010, there was a law that President Obama signed called the Health Information Technology for Economic and Clinical Health Act, otherwise known as the HITECH Act. The HITECH Act provided a number of monetary incentives for a number of different areas within the economy, one of which was in medicine, where it allowed medicine to transform itself from being paper-based to electronic-based. Then in 2013, the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, or Obamacare as it's known, came into existence. Without the ACA, without the HITECH, the ACA wouldn't be as robust as it was. Yet, dentistry was out of that loop unless a practice was 30% or greater of Medicare or Medicare visits, Medicaid or Medicare visits. Now, many practices are not at that level. Many practices don't see Medicaid or Medicare recipients. So dentistry was kind of off to the side and really didn't have to become electronic in terms of our charting and record keeping. Then, over the course of the next few years, other entities pushed dentistry into becoming an electronic environment. So in 2011, Minnesota was one of the first states that required electronic prescriptions. And then in 2015, their records needed to be in electronic format. Now, also, not only state governments, also the third party payers, the insurance companies. At the time, I was doing some software training in an office, and one particular office in Rhode Island was kicking and screaming going into the electronic practice management software systems. And the only reason they actually were doing it was because Delta Dental of Rhode Island was going to reimburse them less if they submitted a paper claim over an electronic claim. Now, we've gone a long way since all of the beginnings here, up until something called the 21st Century Cures Act. President Obama in 2016 signed this. And what it does is it allows for the immediate release of your medical information. Think about you go to a medical doctor right now. You have your annual physicals, or you have blood tests or imaging. You get that information almost instantaneously, sometimes quicker than your doctor sees it. And that's because of this 21st Century Cures Act. It only applies to electronic information, and it involves the interoperability of software. Now, this is a major problem that we have within dentistry because we are currently lacking interoperability, and hopefully we'll get there. And then in terms of HIPAA, we need to know that we can get patient can get access to their information in a timely manner. Now, it's not that falls under that 21st century immediate access. Every state will have a timely manner in terms of accessing patient records. In California, for example, that timely manner is 15 days. In other states, most other states, it's 30 days. So if a patient requests information from their record, you are required to give that to them within a timely manner based off of your state's rules and regulations. You also may need to be doing good faith estimates, and where you're giving patients information about the costs of their treatment if they don't have insurance. We also know that dentistry wants reaction in information from a patient's medical record. Right now, we have dentistry over here, medicine over here. The two never talk to each other. Medical providers, on the other hand, also want access to the patient's dental records. As I mentioned, there's that huge divide, and we need to be pulling that together. And there are opportunities within dentistry right now to do that. And they're coming quickly and over the course of the next few years. One such avenue is the consumer-friendly CDT. Current dental terminology is what we use every single day in our practices. It's the codes that we use. Now, in 2025, this year, the CDT, the ADA, released a consumer-friendly CDT, which basically put all of our coding into consumer-friendly language, which is going to hopefully help bridge that gap. Now, it's also great for new team members who have very little knowledge about dentistry and learning the terminology that we use in dentistry. Now, the ADA in October will be releasing the 2026 CDT, and they will also be releasing a consumer-friendly one as well. So when we talk about a patient in our practice and technology in our practices, we want to use technology that shouldn't change the way we deal with our patients, helps us and improves our information, whether that be from our PMS or other aspects of our dental practices. Now, the number one priority in any dental practice is what? The patient. The patient is the number one priority. So any technology we bring into the practice should always be geared towards the patient. Yes, it's going to help all of us in doing our everyday work, but also how does it help our patients? So when we look at our practice management software, we have to understand the why behind our software. As a trainer, I would go into offices and I would ask questions of the team or review different reports of the team. And I would end up with, I don't know, we never use that. It's part of something of the practice management software that we don't need. Well, you do need. You need to understand why the software is doing what it is doing to help your practice and your patients. So, how do you understand that? You learn from technology. A lot of practice management software have online tutorials or clinical information. They may also have FAQs for you to ask questions. They may even have people come to your office and help with your practice. And that's what a lot of consultants may actually do as well. They may have a strong sense of a particular software and may help your practice. You also need to understand, again, why a software does what it does. For example, one particular software, if you log off incorrectly, then it can affect something that someone else in your practice does. You also need to know not only about the practice management software itself, but about the backup. What is the practice doing for backups? Because there are over 100,000 failures of computers every week. If the computers fail, the lifespan of a computer is anywhere from 5 to 8 years of age. And as the computer gets older and older, the more crashes occur. The more information that's housed in there slows down the software. All of these things apply to what is happening with your backup. We also know that, for example, Microsoft is going to end of life this year of Microsoft 10. So you have to upgrade your computers. What happens if there ever is a crash in your computer? How quickly can you get your computers back up and running? Is the data synced? Does your data, all of your practice management software or any other parts of your computer, how are they backed up? Is it once a day, once a quarter, once an hour? Depending on all of that, how quickly you can get your information back. Is the information encrypted and protected by a firewall? Now, there are a number of companies out there that actually do free backup health checks. They will look at your information and say, hey, this is great. You're doing well here. You might need to do other backups, encrypted or a firewall one. This is a good question. What percentages of businesses that lost their data for 10 or more days filed for bankruptcy? Now, this was a survey that was done outside of dentistry. It was a survey that was done on any type of business. So, a business that lost their data for 10 or more days, 50% filed immediately. So think how important it is to understand what your practice is doing for backup. Now, you don't necessarily need to know all of the ins and outs of the backup and how they're doing it. What is your backup? How do you handle all of that? What percentage of businesses that lost their data for 10 or more days filed for bankruptcy within a year? 93%. Think about your practice. Think about your patients. Think about your paycheck. How would you make ends meet if your practice lost their data for 10 or more days? Think about it. How important it is to understand the basics of what your practice is doing for backup. Because we have this whole new world of cybersecurity and ransomware. Cybersecurity is protecting the hardware and the software that from theft or disruption of your practice. Then ransomware is a type of malware that can block your information until you pay a ransom. So what happens with ransomware? On average, a ransomware incident takes about almost 7.5 days to get their information back. Now, there have been some ransomware attacks that have been over 21 days. Think about that, 10 or more days. Now, there's something called automated data and exfiltration. And what that does is the ransomware grabs the information and sends it off into the wild blue yonder, basically. And that can actually happen within 42 minutes of a ransomware attack. Now, ransomware, if it occurs, it can also cause a breach notification if any potential patient health information is compromised. And if there is a ransomware attack that does cause a breach notification, then there's a percentage of your patients who may leave. And in terms of cost, not only is the cost of the downtime, also the cost of the ransomware can cause havoc along a practice. Now, just like earlier, we talked about the technology and the protections that came about in various legislative activities. Coming maybe sometime next year, I have no definitive date for you. There was a law passed by President Biden in March of 2022, and its implementation, we don't know exactly when it will be implemented. It's going to involve healthcare, dentistry, about protection against cyber threats. You may have to report a cyber threat within 24 to 72 hours, along with a whole bunch of other activities that you're going to have to promote. And this is in addition to what HIPAA requires. So it's the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act. Pay attention to that on your state boards and rules and regulations in terms of when this actually is going to be coming into effect for all of us. Even today, we can take steps to protect our practices. As part of HIPAA, we need to know what the security risk assessment, or in some places is called the analysis, is. Every practice needs to have this risk assessment analysis done. Now, in dentistry, we do risk assessments for caries, periodontal disease, and oral cancer. This is very similar. It's looking at the security risks. And there are a number of different companies out there that provide this for you. Your IT people should be able to do something for you in this regard. Team members need to understand, just like you need to understand the basics of backup, you need to understand where this security risk assessment is, where it's housed, How often is it done? And just some of the basic information, because if there's ever a breach and HIPAA police, the Office of Health and Human Services, the Office of Civil Rights, would come and do an investigation in your practice, they're going to ask you, where is this? What is it? And if you don't know the answer, it could present problems. So here are some offices that have had some incidences where they have had some sort of breach, and they have been reported to the Office of Civil Rights. So, for example, an office in Pennsylvania failed to provide a copy of the patient's medical record within a timely manner. They had to pay a fine and take corrective action. Another office in North Carolina put information about the patient's PHI on their webpage. Again, more fines, more problems. And an office in Alabama disclosed PHI to a campaign manager and a third party marketing company. Again, fines and corrective actions. Do you want your office to be part of this wall of shame that OCR puts out on their website? I don't think so. Which leads us to security within the practices. Every software, every practice management software has the ability to create security and passwords for all of the users. Under HIPAA rules and regulations, you should only have access in your software to information that is required for your position. So I'm a hygienist. In many of my practices that I worked in general and I worked in periodontal practices. I didn't have need to have access to the financials. I wasn't taking money on a daily basis from patients. So I didn't need that access. Whereas in another practice, an assistant may sometimes work in the front and may be doing some clinical in the back. That person may need access to both sides of the software. So, how is their security set up? And when I was a software trainer, I would go into offices and I would review their security. And I would ask them, what about your passwords? And oftentimes I would hear, oh, we all know everybody's password. Or we all log in under the doctor's password. Not good, according to HIPAA guidelines. There is a site, security.org, that actually gives you a model of how secure is your password. So if it just has letters, or if it has letters and numbers and whatever, how quickly can that password be broken? You know, the most common passwords are password 123. Well, that's easy for anyone to break in. So how the more complex any type of password, whether for your practice management software or for your personal information, is it's important to maintain. So when we look at some of the HIPAA requirements, we know that the zip code plus the 4 extra digits is important. The zip code plus 4 gives a physical location, not just in your locality. It is a physical location. And primarily because insurance companies, the third party payers, won't send payments to a post office box. Those 4 extra digits indicate that this is a physical address. And we all know through our annual HIPAA training what TPO is: treatment, payment, and healthcare operations. So all of those things are what HIPAA covers. There are 18 items that are considered protected health information of the patient. Anything other than those 18 items, then that's a non-TPO. So how are you working with your patients in terms of TPO and non-TPO? Then you have to have an inventory. This kind of goes to that security risk analysis. We say no cell phones in the operatories. Most people thought it was because it would interfere with some of our technology. It's not that. It's primarily to protect patient information. How many of us in the clinical aspects have our schedule up in our operatories with patients' names? Now, hopefully, you have the first name, last initial, or just a service or something if you're using your software correctly and understanding the why of the protection of HIPAA. If your practice doesn't do all of that, then I could know that I'm coming into your practice and having a crown done or a tooth extraction. Then what, who, and where are the documentations regarding your security and privacy officer and your HIPAA training? Making sure that you verify all of your patients. A lot of practices, we know our patients. Been coming to us for a number of years. We know them. There are other practices where the patient population is transient, and we may not know them. This is also important for a lot of offices to protect the patient's data. When you go to your medical doctor, there are always two things they ask for: a photo ID and your insurance card. Think about that in terms of what we do in dentistry. We don't ask for that. When you check into a hotel, for example, they want your photo ID and your credit card. Again, they want two forms of identification to make sure that you are who you say you are. And in terms of your practice management software and the network within your practice, you also want to make sure that there are two separate networks within the practice, one on which the practice management software, and then the other is for your guests so that patients, team members can search the internet, can do business, whatever they need to do without being on the same network as your practice management software, because there are people out there who want that data. We also know that credit card information should not be stored in your practice management software. And there are a number of different companies out there that help with that. You also need to have a contingency plan in the event that there is any type of emergency: fire, flood, inability to get to your office. I live in the Boston area. In the winter, we could have a major snowstorm or a blizzard. How do we contact our patients? How do we get our information? And then, if there ever is a problem and there is a breach, and OCR is investigating your practice, you may have to do a certain number of years moving forward that they're going to evaluate you. They can also look backwards. And employees who knowingly know that there is a violation of HIPAA can actually be held liable. Think about all of that. Now, when we talk about HIPAA investigations and fines, they are usually instigated by a patient complaint. Inspections are rare. The HIPAA police don't come into your practice where the OSHA police will come into your practice. In terms of HIPAA, OCR will cause an investigation, will create an investigation, and you will get a letter from them stating that there was a complaint. They're going to want to know copies of all of your written policies and training records, having all of that involved and documented, and knowing who the security and privacy officers are, because they may ask a particular team member who they are. And there are financial consequences as well as loss of patient trust if there's ever a breach. And violations can range from $50,000 to $1.5 million. OCR isn't in the business to just get the money. They want to help you understand your rights and rules and regulations in terms of protecting your patient's data. And so they can work with you. Yes, there may be an initial fine, then they may subtract that based off of you're working with them. Still, you don't want to have anything like an OCR investigation, such as what happened with Gums Dental last year. A patient requested their information, and through a number of different channels, they just didn't get it. There was a $7 million fine that was reduced to $70,000. So, yes, all of this happened. Gums Dental had a problem. They went through all of the investigation. There was a $7 million fine attached. When it came down to it, they only had to pay 70,000, not 7 million. Think about that. Think about what $70,000 would do just for your practice, let alone 7 million. So these are some action steps that I want you to investigate for your practice. Ask your IT people questions about the backups. As I mentioned, you don't need to know all of the ins and outs of everything, but you need to understand some of the basics. Understanding the why of your practice management software. Understand what is going on with it, not just surviving in your practice. And then where is your risk assessment or your analysis? And who are your security and privacy officers within your practice? Which brings up encryption. What is encryption? Well, if you buy things on Amazon, you put in your credit card information, and all of a sudden that gets jumbled up and sent to Amazon, and then they have a key that unlocks it, and that unlocking allows you to buy whatever you're looking for. In dentistry, we want to know that the practice management software is encrypted, and two types of encryption. Encryption in motion while the software is being used versus encryption at rest. And then there's a particular type of encryption called AES 256-bit. Now, I am a hygienist. I don't understand the technical aspects of IT. Your IT people would understand what encryption in motion versus rest and AES 256. Again, another question to ask your IT people. Now, there are a number of different changes coming down across our world in terms of security. And one of which is going to be taking some time in the future, is tokenization. It's going to be replacing encryption because it's going to bring about a string of characters that have no value. And it's going to separate information into sections. Again, I'm not an IT person. These are things that are going to be happening to protect our data, especially when we email something. When we email protected health information, we want to make sure that it is encrypted. Now, email, whether that be Outlook, Yahoo, Google, all of that may or may not be HIPAA compliant. They are what we call MAPI compliant. And MAPI compliant, in basic terms, just means that you read your email on your phone. It then is read on your computer. So if you went to your desktop or your laptop, you would see that that email is read. And that's what MAPI compliance does. Whereas with email, it may or may not be encrypted. And what happens is you have your email address. It then goes to the server of your email company. And then that company sends it to the recipient's email company. And then that email company sends it to the person's email. It all happens within milliseconds. Anywhere along that line of transportation, the information could be hacked. And that's why it's so important, if you are emailing protected health information, that you protect it. There's something We are all now more and more of us are using teledentistry. And prior to COVID, teledentistry was out on the outskirts, maybe in rural areas, that sort of thing. Now, after COVID, well, a lot of offices are using teledentistry for triaging patients, for introducing the practice to patients, a number of different ways. Even with teledentistry, we want to make sure that the information is something called end-to-end encryption, or E2EE. That makes sure that only the person that's supposed to be receiving that information actually gets it. Now, as I mentioned, many of us have our schedules up in our practices, in our operatories. What happens? How does your practice management software allow for HIPAA compliance of your schedule? Do they hide the names? Do they hide what you're doing for that patient? Again, understanding the why behind what your PMS does. So a few other pieces of information about HIPAA. We want to make sure that when we have our patients checking in or checking out, that we have a bit of privacy for that, making sure that the patients don't have access to seeing the schedule, making sure your servers are locked down if you are still a server-based office. We'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, and make sure that they are secure. Now, copy machines and the old fax machines, actually, when you copy something, it retains the information. So, for example, you receive your EOBs and you copy those so that you can scan them into your practice management software. They are scanned and copied into your copier, your machine. And over time, those build up and they contain protected health information. So when you're disposing of any type of electronics that may contain protected health information, you want to make sure that you're destroying that information. And there are a number of different ways of dealing with that. And then having a shredder available quite easily in the front or in the operatories, wherever you need to put it, that's reasonably accessible to everyone to shred your protected health information. Schedules, for example, some offices, even though they're using their PMSs, may still print schedules, or your EOBs. Once they're scanned into your software, you may need to destroy those. And then having backup drives that are either encrypted or cloud-based. And again, depending on your IT, where those go. Now, in dentistry, a number of years ago, when practice management softwares came into our world, it was one or two practices, a couple of doctors here or there. So servers were well accepted. We didn't need to know information about 4, 5, 10, 50 offices and looking at all of their metrics. Now we do. A lot of what we do in our own world, in our own lives, is cloud-based. Think about the Amazons, think about the Hulus and the Netflix of the world. Those are all cloud-based software. And when we look at those, we are looking at something called software as a service. So your Amazon Prime, for example, or your Hulu or Netflix subscriptions, those are all software as a service, SaaS. And with cloud-based practice management software, you're doing the same thing. You're subscribing to the software versus physically buying it. So you pay a monthly fee for that use of that cloud base. Now, how do they support you? Is your internet speed appropriate for your practice? So, for example, I take an x-ray. How quickly does it go to the cloud? How quickly can I retrieve it from the cloud? Who owns the data? Sometimes the cloud-based software may own that protected health information. And yet, it's your patient information. So who owns it? There was a practice at one point that had gone to cloud-based after having server-based practice management software. And for whatever reason, the cloud-based software just didn't work for them. A number of different things. Their internet speed wasn't correct. The software wasn't great for them, all of those types of things. So they tried to get their software back, their own protected health information, their own patients' data back. They were charged a fee because the company that was cloud-based owned the PHI, the patient data. Then also, how is information backed up? Is it backed up here in the United States following HIPAA guidelines, or is it backed up offshore? And we may or may not be following HIPAA guidelines. Is it two-factor authentication? We'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment. Two-factor authentication, I love it and I hate it because it's providing an extra link to protect our information. Yet it can be time consuming. It's that when you log into some software on one device and a second device asks you to verify that, that's two-factor authentication. We also have mobile devices, and we also want to make sure that whether it's a phone, a tablet, whatever a mobile device you're using in your practice, you want to make sure that all of the software is up to date. And this is one of the criteria in terms of HIPAA, making sure that your practice management software is up to date. Because a lot of times there are security enhancements that occur in newer editions of your PMSs. Always check apps before installing, making sure that they are truly an app that you need to use. And then if you're out in public, always using a virtual private network. Using public Wi-Fi is great. It can also be dangerous as well. So using a VPN, and a VPN, what that does is I'm in Boston, it actually says I'm in Chicago because it's changing things around. It's putting me somewhere where I'm not and protecting my information. Or using something like a data blocker, which actually plugs in to your phone or your tablet or whatever and blocks the data from your data from being exposed out in the real world. There have been a lot of information recently about plugging your USB into a variety of public areas because there's a lot of data hacking that can occur from that. Using a data blocker can block that from happening. Now, a lot of our practices have people who work remotely. We want to make sure that any remote worker has a network security. Remember, they are using protected health information. They are exposed to patients' health data. So we want to make sure that their home security or wherever they are, their security is up to date and following HIPAA guidelines. So there are a lot of great programs out there that allow for home security. Yet if you're doing remote work, you don't want to use those free programs. You want to make sure that they are at protecting at a protection level that is almost as good as your business. Now, a lot of home offices, a lot of people work from home, so they have a home office. If you do that and you're dealing with protected health information, you want to make sure that your Wi-Fi is segmented, very similar to having a guest network and your practice management network. So you have one network that is in your home that is allowing for your family's use, and then one for your employment work. And then always following up with encrypted email. Which brings us to phishing. What is phishing? It's when a malicious actor is sending out emails that appear to be from a recognized source that compromise your information. So how do you avoid getting phished? We've all had phishing attempts. Well, always look at the return email address. Where is it coming from? There may be something that's off a letter. So, for example, the address may be from Microsoft. In actuality, if you really look at it, the F is missing in soft. So things like that. Or if it's a generic email, or if it's generic enough to know you've never heard of this person, or there's poor grammar or spelling. With the use of artificial intelligence, a lot of this is decreasing. So some of this is you can spot right away. With AI, now you may not be able to. So all I want you to do is remember the gift cards, remember the story, remember that anyone can be phished. Now, to check if a website is secure, these are just some of the various types of websites to check if that website is correct. So, for example, that Microsoft without the F, is that secure? Or does it have the HTTPS, which means that it's secure, or it has that lock symbol on it? FBI last year warned dental practices that a new patient would contact your office and wants new patient information sent. Yet they have trouble submitting the forms. They can't get them, whatever. They want you to know if they can scan the forms and email them back to you. Well, in that email, there's a phishing attempt, and it contains malware that if you open that attachment, boom, you've been open to a cyber attack. Now, not only do we have phishing, we have vishing. It's a phone call. You get a call from an unknown number claiming that the police are going to come after you because you have an unpaid bill. Don't think so. Then there's smishing. You've won an award. You're going to get all of this money. Please click on the link. Again, no. Smishing involves text messages. And then quishing is when a QR code is sent. Now, when I do these programs in person, I do a number of different programs. When I do in-person CE programs, I have a handout where I have a lot of QR codes in it from various companies. Great. If you see a QR code somewhere that you're not quite sure, I would always be questioning it. And especially QR codes from emails, attached to emails that you may or may not know the sender. And then mishing. It uses all different types of things. May use text messaging, may use emails, may use QR codes, may use the vishing. All of these things combined try to get your information and your protected health information of your patients. Scary, definitely. We need to protect ourselves. Now, there is something called a deep fake. Now, a deep fake is using artificial intelligence to doctor images to create what looks like a true image. Now, it can be used for identity theft, phishing, hoaxes, blackmail, and disinformation. Did you know that Tom Hanks, a couple of years ago, was involved in a dental insurance company? Nope. He had nothing to do with the dental insurance company. It was just a deep fake of him promoting this insurance company. So how do you determine, is this real or is this a deep fake? And as AI is really coming into its own, yes, these are some of the basic ways we can determine if it's actual or if it's a deep fake. The more AI comes in, the better and better it's going to be, so that we may not be able to recognize a real image from a deep fake. Now, I was looking about a year ago, I was looking at a website, and this particular website had different videos of their product and how they were using their product. And the first one I watched, I was like, okay, this sounds great. The second one I watched, I'm like, there's something here. That by the time the third one I watched, I knew exactly what it was. It was an AI generated video. So having an awareness of whether it's AI, is it a deep fake or is it real, is important. Now, all of our practices have or should have a website. Unfortunately, there are bad actors, just like in all of the smishing and vishing and phishing, that actually want to take over your website. And this has happened to some dental offices where there's something called cyber squatting, where the bad actor grabs a hold of the website and makes it into something that it shouldn't be. For example, a pornographic site. So when you're working with your website people, how do they protect your website? How do they protect your domain? And if your website actually collects patient information, so a patient can put in information about, they want to contact you. Do you have a business associate agreement with that website designer and that website company? All of things to think about. A timely response to a security incident is one of the best ways to prevent, mitigate, and recover from cyber attacks. It's not if, when you will be attacked. Because in 2024, there was anywhere from 30 to 400% increase in cyber attacks, everything ranging from ransomware and phishing and smishing and mishing and all of those. Think about that. 69% increase in cyber attacks are targeting healthcare companies. Healthcare. Dentistry is healthcare. And 94% of dental breaches resulted from ransomware. Think about that for your practice. So, in 2024, a medical practice was fined because of ransomware. Another medical practice had a phishing attempt. They lost their information. Is dentistry next? We've got all of the Health and Human Services, OCR, fining medical. What about dentistry? We want to protect our practices and protect our patients' information as much as possible. We also know that over the last couple of years, there have been so many attacks on dentistry. Aspen Dental, Henry Schein, and the most notorious one is Change Healthcare. How many of our practices were affected by that Change Healthcare problem? An Indiana practice paid $350,000 to improve training because they had a cyber attack in 2020, and it was a ransomware attack that took the patient information. So how do we protect our practices? What are we doing? It's not if, when. So we know that cybersecurity is not just IT. It's everyone. It's the hygienist, it's the assistant, it's the office manager, it's the administrative team member, it's the doctor. All of these are team members, and they all have input into protecting the practice's software. Even if your practice doesn't have PMSs, practice management software, and you still maintain your paper records, doesn't mean that you're protected. There was an office in California a couple of years ago that didn't lock up their patient records. I'm not going to play the video for you. Basically, it was they had someone break into their office and grabbed as many papers, charts as they could, stuffed them into a trash bag, and ran off, all within a 5 to 10 minute period, if that. Think about all of that information that was lost, all of that patient PHI that just ran out that door. So making sure that if you still have paper records, that they're not out in the open like these were, that they are locked up. Because data on the dark web is where all of these threat actors live. That data can cost anywhere from $45 to over $5,000. If they're working as an email scammer, they can make as much as $300 a month from one customer. Now, we have software as a service. We also have crimeware as a service or ransomware as a service. So there are companies out there that create ransomware to attack businesses, healthcare organizations. And actually, that Change Healthcare problem was actually a retaliation to something that was done previously. And the ransomware and the crimeware was brought on to attack Change Healthcare. So, do you know where your data is? It's not if, when. And cyber hygiene includes all of the best practices of protecting your information. We also know that patients know and understand about protecting information. Patients are concerned that their information is going to be breached. They distrust things like Amazon and Apple and Microsoft. And they're not comfortable in sharing information. How many patients we used to always ask patients for their social security numbers. Now we very rarely will do that because patients don't want their number exposed. So your IT people have to follow something called the Cybersecurity Framework, which is put out by the National Institutes of Standards and Technology, called NIST. The short version is NIST. So in 2024, NIST came out with NIST 2.0 about cybersecurity guidance framework. So what a business needs to do to protect any protected health information or business information. Think about your credit cards, that sort of thing. Then there is a current framework specifically by NIST that targets healthcare. So your IT, your cybersecurity people should understand what this NIST 800-66 RS2 is to protect your information. Now, your IT people and your cybersecurity people, you may need to have two different entities, IT and cybersecurity. Now, there are companies out there that are called MSPs, managed service providers, that do remote handling of both of those. And one of the things that they do in terms of security is using software, one of which is called XDR security. It looks at your data, protecting your data, and what happens when there is an attack. It's not if, when. Health and Human Services also has training modules and how to secure your practice in terms of health information. If it's not if, when. So being aware and being prepared, having effective firewalls, anti-malware software, cybersecurity, and vetting any vendor that has access to your information. Making sure that you always are on the most up-to-date version of your practice management software, thinking about Windows 10 and their end of life, which is coming in October of this year, which then opens up any computer that has Windows 10 to massive attacks because Microsoft is not supporting it anymore. And then having knowledgeable IT people and security people using that VPN, understanding and doing your annual training for HIPAA, and testing your team members, and having information written in your practices, policy, and procedures manual. Cybersecurity is not IT. There are two different entities. Cybersecurity over here, IT is how your computers are running. How is your software running? Cybersecurity protects the integrity of the computers and the software. And then having cybersecurity insurance, which we'll talk about in a moment. Then if there ever is a breach or a cyber attack or a ransomware, there are ways that not only you have to report to HIPAA, you can also contact the Internet Crime Complaint Center and your state's attorney generals or the Department of Justice. So there are a number of ways that you can attack the attackers, so to speak. Now, when we talk about having cybersecurity insurance, we want to make sure that your practices have a standalone policy. It is separate from the other types of insurance that the practice may have, that it covers investigations by OCR. It covers looking at where this attack came from, how to recover. Sometimes you can get your information back. Sometimes you can't. So how do you have to replace all of your software and your computers and just the time it takes to recover? Think about going back to those practices, those businesses that lost their data for 10 or more days, what happened immediately and what happened within a year. And then having an information that is at least $1 million policy. Now, that policy may limit the amount of ransom that you may be able to pay. So there's a lot of information that a cybersecurity insurance plan will need to cover. And it's always important to get that and have it as a standalone. Because which house would you want to burglarize? The house that has the dog in front of it, the house that has well lit, or the house that's in darkness? We know we want to go attack that dark house. Nobody's going to be fighting it. Now, there was also not only from outside threats, from inside threats. People working within the practice can actually be causing things that are causing problems, such as this woman in Illinois who was practicing illegal dentistry and tampered with the computer system, changing employment records, ordering supplies, all of that. And this is where those security levels come into place. And we want to make sure that we only have access in our software for doing what we need to do. Now, with all of this being said, the Office of Civil Rights later this year, 2025, is going to be sending out updates to our security rule. Now, HIPAA has several different components, the privacy rule, the security rule. And in 2025, at some point this year, we're going to have updates to that security rule. So practices need to be aware of that and retrain their practice on all of the information that's going to be coming out. So, action. You need to create and understand what is your practice's policy on cyber attacks. Understand what a deep fake is and be able to recognize it, or at least, if not completely recognize, question. And then training and testing the team is so important. Now, we've talked all about our personal security, our practice security. Well, what about our own security? Never answer a robocall or spam call. Don't accept free offers. There's nothing free. A lot of times you may get something in the mail or an email saying, oh, deposit this check or here's some free money. No. Be sensitive about what you do on public Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi is great. Don't do any sensitive transactions. Don't click on emails that you don't know who the attachment is from. And don't accept messages from friends you don't know. I've gotten messages, text messages. Hi, how are you? What are you doing tonight? I don't know who this person is. I just delete. And then don't make sure you don't click on password updates. Make sure that you're only verifying where that information is coming from. And I know social media is all the rage and having so much fun out there. There's all these different quizzes that are out there, oh, do you like this? Do you like that? Do you go here? Do you go there? They're great. They can also harbor malware. Then, to protect yourself, read your accounts, check your bank statements, freeze your accounts. Yes, freezing accounts can create some issues. It's always good to protect yourself. Whenever you're doing anything that is secure, you want to make sure that you see the HTTPS or the lock symbol on the website, shredding any information that has personal identification. Check your security on all of your smart devices, which brings us to that two-factor authentication. Whether it's clicking on different pictures, copying a word, or having one device where you sign in and then it asks you to sign in on a second device, or using your finger or your eye as security. All of these things are helping to protect our own information. Not only do we want to protect our patient's information, we also want to protect ourselves and our family as well. So with all of that information, it's been a scary part. I wanted you to be aware of what's out there, which brings us to AI, artificial intelligence. What it's around us every single day. If you look at the top row of most movies and TV, those are the good AI that's been around. The lower row is some of the negativity of AI that's been in our movies. AI is good and AI is bad. Why do we need to know about AI? Well, it's around us every single day. And patients are looking for practices that are using technology and using artificial intelligence. And if this was a live presentation, I would ask you, are you currently or have you used AI in your practices and in your real life outside? What is artificial intelligence? It's the computer's ability to solve problems like a human, but there are three components to it. When you're cooking, you follow a recipe. And in AI, there are a recipe that has ingredients of algorithms, which are mathematical concepts. A computer, the speed of the computer has been amazing over the last few years. And the amount of data. Data is so important in AI and how artificial intelligence learns. I have a whole program on AI and we go into all of the different aspects of it. And I'm just going to be giving you an overview of some of that because AI isn't anything new. It's been around for years. In fact, in 1642, a French mathematician, Blaise Pascal, founded something that looks like a calculator. In 1837, Charles Babbage and Ada Lovelace created a programmable machine, which in today's world would be considered a computer. It wasn't until the works of World War II and the works of Alan Turing that AI really took off. Alan's work in World War II was breaking the Germans' code. and he was a mathematician. And through his work, not only through World War II, then afterwards, where he created a test that looked at a machine's intelligence versus a human. It wasn't until the 1950s that the term artificial intelligence from all of that other information came into being. And then in 2011, we had Watson. Watson played Jeopardy. And Watson beat a computer, beat a human at playing Jeopardy. And from then on, artificial intelligence has taken off by taking our world by storm, not only in our personal lives, in our professional lives as well. AI isn't just one thing. We know that there are computers, algorithms, and data that comprise, and those are the ingredients of AI. AI also has different subsets. One is machine learning. It's pattern recognition. It's when you watch Netflix or Hulu and they give you suggestions for other shows that you might like. Deep learning. We know that it can classify and predict outcomes. It's in the event that you're somewhere and you're using your credit card and it flags your credit card. That's deep learning. Neural networks, just like the neural networks in our brain cause relationships, that's what a neural network of AI does. It's a computer game character. Computer vision, it's decisions based on previous observations. It's the information that we now have in our cars about blind spots or the self-driving cars that know, hey, when to stop, when to go left, when to go right, all of that. Cognitive computing analyzes speech and language as if it was a human, your chatbot. And natural language processing understands language. It's your Siri, it's your Alexas of the world. All of these fall into where we're going with AI in dentistry. Now, there's also taking all of those individual subsets into what we now know are large language models. That's ChatGPT. It knows and creates information from a prompt or a question that you ask. You ask, what is AI into ChatGPT? And it's going to give you a whole bunch of information. It may give you text, it may give you images, it may give you a video. All of that helps in terms of understanding AI. Now, not only do we have the ingredients and the subsets, we also have different types of AI. We are now in artificial narrow intelligence, where it knows one area and can solve one problem at a time. Artificial general intelligence is where we're going. We're almost there. We're not quite there yet. We're getting there. The computer is as smart as a human. And then artificial superintelligence. It's when the robots take over the world. And hopefully we will never get there. What are some of the strengths of AI? Well, it can reduce human error. We know, for example, when a storm is coming, how it protects us. It is available 24/7. It doesn't have to eat. It doesn't have to drink. It doesn't have to go to the bathroom. It doesn't have to sleep. It's always on. It can help in repetitive jobs, things that as humans we don't want to do over and over and over again. And more importantly, especially for dentistry, it brings about calibration. It makes everyone's ability all on the same playing field. And then it also mitigates risks. Think about the bomb sniffing robots that go into a building before a human would. That's AI. What are some of the weaknesses? Eliminating repetitive tasks can lead to unemployment. A lot of times when I go into practices or I present the full AI program, we talk about the fear that team members have. If we bring AI into our practice, what's going to happen to my job? you're still going to have your job. It's not going to replace you. It's going to help you do your job better. And remember what that number one priority is in NA practice, the patient. It's going to help with our patients. It's emotionless. It has no feeling. Automation can bring about laziness. I do a lot of writing, and when I do writing in articles for various publications, I do an outline, I put together my writing, and then I can put it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT helps with creating different wording for me or helps smooth out some of my writing. Yeah, if I was someone who didn't want to just write, I could just put an idea into ChatGPT and it would create an article just like that for me. That's laziness. That's not helping. There's a high cost of creation and training. We have to train the computer algorithms over and over and over again so that they achieve what they need to. There are also security concerns with AI. Think about the deep fakes and then the potential for biases. When facial recognition first came about using AI, it was based off of white males. Now we know the population is not all male and it is not all white. That's where the bias came in. We also know that AI is not only doing good, it's helping protect our data because it's giving us a good defense. So think about using some AI for your practice protection. Now, when we talk about software as a service, SaaS, the cloud-based practice management software or any other cloud-based service, we're talking software as a service. There is also something called software as a medical device. Software as a medical device is any software that is being used to diagnose or treat disease. And if that software is being used to diagnose or treat, it becomes software as a medical device and must be cleared by the FDA, which becomes important for some of the things that we are using AI in dentistry for. AI in medicine has been around for a while. It's been in drug creation, it's been in image analysis. We also know that medical literature doubles every 7 days. So, how can a medical professional keep up with all of this information that's constantly evolving and being churned out about patient health? That's where AI can come in. AI is being used in image analysis, in monitoring, in wearables, and in robotic surgeries. It also uses each of these categories use a different subset. They may use one subset of natural language processing or deep learning model or neural networks, depending upon what that particular software is being used for. It will use the different subset of AI. We also have wearables now available that are using AI. Cardiomobile is one that allows for recognition of your heart rate. You wear a little monitor and it'll give you, is your heart rate normal, too fast, too slow? The glucose monitors or the smartwatches or the smart rings that measure all different aptitudes of your health. Also, with any of these devices, you want to make sure that it's protecting your particular health information. Where does HIPAA fall into all of these AI devices? Wearables are going to become more and more important as we venture using AI and maintaining our overall health. They're going to become part of our clothing and other avenues. Think about your smartwatches or your smart rings. There's actually a product out there currently that was put out by Laura Health. That's this first salivary diagnostic wearable. We know that saliva is the new blood. The saliva gives us a lot of information about that patient's health. And wearing a wearable in your oral environment, whether that be from a retainer or an aligner or a bracket, helps diagnose that particular patient. We want to bring that medicine and dentistry back together. So, AI has three main ingredients: algorithms, computers, and data. AI products that are software as a medical device, as AMD, is software that is being used to diagnose or treat, and it needs to be FDA cleared. Now, there are no experts in AI because the environment is moving so fast, especially in dentistry. Because we know the history of modern dentistry, where in the 1800s and beyond, we had things like toothpaste and amalgam and x-rays and fluoride, and implants came into existence in the 70s and 80s, and scanners and aligners over the last few years, and digital dentistry that has changed our world in terms of how we communicate with our patients in terms of impressioning and all of that. And now the next big wave, which is already here, is artificial intelligence. AI in dentistry has been around for a while. We have had it in our smart toothbrushes, the brushes that tell you, hey, you're brushing too heavy here, you're missing this area. That's artificial intelligence that's been in dentistry for a while. Yet in dentistry, we have all of these different silos. We have our medical history that doesn't talk with our periodontal charting, that doesn't talk with our CBCT. We have CAD CAM that doesn't attach to our claims or looking at our KPI and our analytics in our practices. AI can break down all of these silos and bring them together so that we understand our information and our data better, because AI can bring about greater patient engagement, can help our offices run better, can market our practices, and can grow our practices. AI will be an essential utility in dentistry within, when I first started presenting this, I said 5 to 10 years. No, it's an essential utility right now, because it's going to break down our silos of inconsistency and inefficiency within our practices. We have a lot of areas within our practices that are so inefficient, that don't help our practices, nor our number one priority, our patients. Yet we have a lot of team members in our practices who may or may not like technology. We have detractors who say, no, we've tried it, don't want to go there, it's not going to work. Then we have the neutral people. Oh, let's see, doctor went to a meeting, brought back this software or this technology, we'll see how it works, we might end up in the corner. And then we have those advocates, those people within the practice who are pushing our information to the next level. We also know that technology in dentistry increases our patient outcomes and education about dentistry for our patients. Remember, it's the number one priority is the patient. And we also know that using artificial intelligence improves our bottom line in terms of productivity and profitability. While we're doing that, we are also elevating our patient care. Patients want practices that are using technology. So we'll look at a few products that are in using AI in dentistry. Before we do that, we have to look at something called the hallucination of AI. AI may see something, but it may not see something. So the best way of analyzing this is in radiographs. In AI radiograph, it may see a carious area. When you look in the patient's mouth, that area is not there. There is no carious lesion. That's a false positive. Versus a false negative where it completely misses a carious area on your imaging. You see it in the mouth. They don't mix. They're not together. It's hallucinating things. The false positive and the false negative are important aspects of AI. They are important in that we want to keep that hallucination to a low level. It's part of parcel of what AI does. So, whenever we talk about bringing any technology into our practice to appease those different types of patients, team members in our practices, we have to look at change management. Why are we doing this? Remember, I talked about the why of your practice management software, understanding why we're doing the change, and then going through all of these basic principles of change management and how important it is to elevate your practice. Now, we know that patients are contacting offices in a variety of manners, whether that be through your website, through emails, or any number of different ways. They still contact us through the phone. So having excellent phone etiquette is still also very important, where we want team members to have a dialogue that they know. So, for example, if your practice places implants and a patient calls up about implants, then your whoever's answering the phone will have an understanding of that. So having a dialogue, understanding that patients oftentimes, when they're in the back and the clinical aspects, will say yes to something. Then when they come out to the front and are ready to schedule, they may change and ask questions. So whoever's answering the phone or is at your administrative desk understands some of the technical aspects. So when we're talking about calls and tracking using AI, there are a number of different companies out there that are available for giving analytics about your calls. Did that call get answered on the third or fourth ring? Was it a question that AI could answer? So there's a number of different products that actually help understanding our practice is in terms of our phone skills. Another company, Practice by Numbers, has a whole suite, not only of those other products like Patient Prism and Mango. Practice by Numbers has a whole suite of information. There is a company out there, My Social Practice, that has a voice receptionist, Annie, that answers your phone. We know that a lot of practices are team short. They don't have a lot of team members to answer the phone or help with the administrative. The hiring in dentistry is so difficult right now for all aspects, whether that be administrative or clinical. So some offices may need to have an AI assistant answering the phone. I've written along with My Social Practice ebook about artificial intelligence and how using something like a receptionist can actually help improve your patient interaction and your patient engagement. Now, we can also use any of the large language models, such as ChatGPT, for writing our letters. There are some research that says insurance letters that are written by AI are actually more sympathetic in terms of appeals than a person written letter. Now, there are a number of different large language models beyond ChatGPT. We have Claude, we have Gemini, Jasper, Perplexity. All of these are large language models that can help with our correspondence and with our marketing. You always want to make sure that whatever the AI produces, it is verified and credible. A lot of offices will create something through AI and then have the doctor or the owner review it to make sure that it follows through with practice protocols and practice philosophy. AI is protecting our equipment, uptime health. uses AI to ensure the practice runs efficiently in making sure that all of the hardware is up to date and working well. Think about what happens when a compressor goes down. Can't run your practice. So Uptime Help, you can help with maintaining all of your equipment. Smart Chair AI. How often is a chair being utilized? How is it being utilized? Is it being utilized in a manner that helps our patients and helps our practice productivity and profitability? We also talked a little earlier about AI. Teledentistry. AI in teledentistry, a number of different companies out there that are using teledentistry and combining it with AI to follow a patient who's on aligners. With aligners, we know that you may give a patient an aligner 2, 3, 4 aligners, and you may not see them for 2, 3, or 4 months. You don't know how they're progressing in their treatment. Using teledentistry and AI can help with that. We also know that as a hygienist, I have difficulty in doing comprehensive periodontal charting. I don't have time to do it all. So what do? I also know that I am bound to do a comprehensive periodontal evaluation. When I was working with the software company, I would go into practices and look at various reports, one of which was on their perio statistics. And they thought they were doing great. When I actually looked at the numbers, they really weren't. And what we do is that is called the perioprophy percentage or the perioprophy ratio. So you add up all of your codes for the hygiene codes of prophy and periodontal. Then you divide that by the number to get a prophy percentage. Then you divide the number of periodontal procedures by that total number, and then you get a periodontal percentage. And we know that if that percentage is less than 25 to 30%, then you're not diagnosing periodontal disease appropriately. We don't have time to do comprehensive periodontal evaluation. And comprehensive periodontal evaluation doesn't just mean bleeding and probing depth. It involves bleeding, probing depth, mucogingival involvement, mobility, furcation, clinical attachment loss. All of that is a comprehensive model of periodontal care. I don't have time, and I don't have any way of helping. So this is where artificial intelligence can come in. There is a product, Bola, that actually is voice periodontal charting. It can also do notes and restorative charting for all of our practices, saves time, educates our patients. We also know that there are billions of x-rays in medicine and in dentistry every year. 39% of those are done just in dentistry alone. When we look at x-rays, you discuss with 10 hygienists or 10 dentists, you're going to get 10 different opinions as to, is this caries? Is this bone loss? Is this whatever? We now know that AI outperforms imaging regardless. And when we have that 10 different opinions, patients lose trust in us. How many times that as a hygienist, I was in practice, doctor would come in, say whatever the patient needed, would leave, and then the patient would give me this look. Do I really need that? Do I really trust what he or she, the dentist, said? A lot of times they don't. Yet they will come in with Dr. Google, and Dr. Google says, oh, this is what I need to do. We also know that patients trust technology. And when you combine technology with our skills, the trust level goes up and the case acceptance goes up as well. In terms of imaging, Imaging is software using AI is software as a medical device. So it needs to be FDA cleared. Now, it can also be in other avenues of the world. Canada has an equivalent FDA called Health Canada, or in Europe, there's something called the European Union Medical Device Group. So all of these are looking at AI and saying, okay, if it's being used for diagnosing or treating, it needs to be cleared. It also is going to improve our patient trust. So imaging using AI is all of the best of what AI is. It's consistent, it's accurate, it's unbiased, and it's fast. Now, there are a number of different companies out there. Pearl, Overjet, Denti.ai, and NVIDIA Health are all companies that are using AI on our PAs, our bite wings, our FMXs, our panoramic images. We also have other aspects using AI. We want to make sure that when we are using our codes, when we use our CDT codes, for imaging or evaluation, we always want to make sure that we are discussing our findings with the patients because that is part of the CDT code and it should be documented in your notes, as well as documenting when you seated the patient and when you dismissed the patient. And when you submit imaging to third-party payers, your insurance companies, they like to see the clear image and then the AI image. So you should be sending both images to your third-party payers. We also have the protection that AI helps. It helps remove any personal identifiers when we're sending those AI images along to the particular company. We also want to understand using AI, we can evaluate how our practices metrics are doing. What patients have unscheduled treatment? What patients are due this month? What patients are accepting treatment? All of that. We know that Henry Schein One has Jarvis Analytics, again, using AI to help understand our practice metrics. AI in not only in our imaging, in our PAs and bite wings and FMXs, it's also looking at our analysis, our CBCT analysis, and making sure that there is clearance on all of those, FDA clearance. There's a new product that is waiting for FDA clearance, put out by a company called Parametrics to determine if a tooth is cracked. A lot of times we don't understand, a patient is exhibiting symptoms. We can't diagnose it. We think it may be a cracked tooth, not showing up on imaging or doesn't follow exactly the protocols of a cracked tooth. Using something like Interview may actually help diagnose. Again, it's waiting for FDA clearance. It's not available currently. We know that AI robots are in dentistry. Implant surgery put out by Yomi, by Neosys, that has been available for several years. There's also a robotic system that was used as a restorative to do restorative treatment. Now, I don't think I would want something like this putting a filling into my mouth, and it's not cleared by the FDA yet. It's coming. Robots in dentistry are coming. Won't replace us, are coming. We can look at prep assessments and digital scanning using AI. Is it a good prep? Is it a good scan? All of that. There is a company called OraQ that takes those risk assessments for oral cancer, periodontal disease, and oral cancer, periodontal disease, and caries, and adds things like sleep apnea. We know sleep apnea is rampant in our world and how important sleep is. So it's looking and creating a whole health analytic for our patients. As mentioned, saliva is the new blood. And there's a company, Oral Genome, that is approved by the American Diabetes Association and the American Dental Association as AI for salivary diagnostics. I talked about the connection between medicine and dentistry and bringing that interoperability closer together. Tooth Apps is doing just that. And it is also protecting any messages that we may be sending to our patients. The text messaging, we want to make sure that we're text messaging our patients in a secure manner. There's also something called a social robot. It's based off of a large language model and can help with a variety of aspects. It acts as if it's a human or a robot. There's a cute Robin the Robot put out by Expert Technologies that is actually great for pediatric practices. It was developed for children in hospitals. From there, it has evolved into dentistry and actually communicates with the children in a dental office, whether that be a pediatric practice or a general practice, using AI to help encourage and create a friendly environment for an area that could be scary for that child. We also know AI has been used for years in claims management, looking at routing our claims, looking at fraud. It's coming that we're going to have point of care adjudication. We're going to know right at that chair, at that moment, is that claim going to be approved or denied? It's coming. We also know that there are a number of procedures within dentistry that insurance companies look at, the things like quad scaling or composites or crowns or core buildups. They're looking at all of these procedures. These are the most ones that get flagged oftentimes. We also know that there are the 3 C's of revenue cycle management, and AI can help with that. What we do, we should be coding for what we do. We need to be collecting for what we do, and we need to be working with our third-party payers to get our approved contracts available. Now, eAssist also has a program called Copilot that can be used to help with our CMs. And AI is being used in a variety of areas in RCM management, everywhere from documentation and treatment acceptance and communication, and just inputting our patient information. Again, eAssist has a number of different aspects that can help a practice, everywhere from revenue cycle management to PPO reimbursement rates to credentialing. We also have augmented reality in dentistry, which can be used to educate patients and professionals, versus a virtual reality, which actually replaces our real world with a digital environment, as if you're in that world itself, blocking out the outside environment. There is a dental education virtual reality put out by a company called Velmeni. They are a digital company. They are also doing virtual reality. Columbia University has a Center for Precision Medicine, which actually looks at the data and how a dental student and a patient are interacting. And is that patient interacting with their medical doctor? What are their medical conditions? It's bringing all of that data together. There's also, we have that large language model of ChatGPT. We now have a large language model in dentistry that's actually a co-pilot. It's called Isaac. And if you register at trustdentistry.ai and use this code, then you would learn more about this clinical partner, Isaac. You ask Isaac a question very similar, a prompt very similar to what you do for ChatGPT. This is exclusively for dentistry. as well as it's going to be helping with a number of different avenues within dentistry itself. We are all bound by social media. We're on social media a lot, and there are different types of social media. Social media has its pros and its cons. And one of the cons of AI is being used in social media to create those fake friends, those deep fakes. So social media is great, can also cause a lot of problems as well, not only for us personally, for us professionally. So, action. You need to look at a variety of different products that are available for patient engagement and care using AI. Now, some of these products may be great for one practice, where another product within a category will be great for another practice. All of these things are things that you should be looking at and investigating. So, beyond patient care, AI is being used to improve team bonding, to buy new practices, and to grow new practices. And we already mentioned about the metrics of the practice. Whenever we use technology, whether that be AI or any other technology, we want to be following evidence based dentistry. What we know, plus all of the data together, creating our information, because we want to create a patient-centered practice. Remember, it's all about the patient. The patient is the number one priority. There are so many different areas that AI is going to be helping with in terms of what we do, whether that be in ortho, in surgery, or TMJ. Yet, just like there are guardrails in terms of HIPAA, AI needs to have some guardrails as well. The NIST has an AI risk framework. The ADA has created a white paper on AI. The Veterans Affairs and the University of Maryland are working on variety of different AI models and creating the validation for all of those. The American Dental Association has a validation data set for looking at how imaging is being used in dentistry with AI. The Office of Civil Rights has a non-discrimination policy on AI. Yet, when we look at AI, we want to understand our hallucinations. We want to understand change management. We want to know where that data is coming from and how is it being protected, whether that be through HIPAA regulations or a penetration test, otherwise known as a pen test, where the company tries to break its own software. Regardless of whatever type of technology comes into a practice, we always want to put it in terms of what is the practice's goal and having team input. Because we want to know if that technology, that AI, is going to make my life better or is it going to be worse? How are we going to get information about this? How are we going to deploy it? Is it going to be all at once or is it going to be over time? And what about education now and as the software or technology grows? We have a number of different workflows looking at chart audits, looking at perio charting, looking at imaging, looking at unscheduled treatment, looking at our phone calls. All of that is all part of what AI can do for dentistry. Ultimately, AI can give us back time. As a hygienist, I often struggle with time, whether it be 45-minute appointment or an hour appointment. I don't have enough time to do everything that I need to do to educate and treat that patient. AI is only going to be a second opinion. It's not going to replace anyone within dentistry. So where did we go today? We talked about HIPAA and cybersecurity, and we talked about AI. So with all of that, if the black QR code, it goes to an evaluation site where you put in the word call. Call will then open up an evaluation. how you thought this program was. Was it informative for you? Did you learn a lot? All of that. I do not get any of your contact information from that. So if you want to contact me about anything I've spoken about, other programs that I do, you go to the blue QR code and that goes to my website, or you can email me with my email address below. And I always ask whenever I give a training or a program such as this, if I've given you one thing, then I've done my job that you didn't know about before you took the program. So with that, I want to thank eAssist and Jacqueline for this program. And Jacqueline, you want to finish up?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anne Marie, for sharing your expertise, for helping us better understand how to protect our practices, and preparing for the future in dentistry when it comes to AI. That was a lot of information, yet it has been so valuable, so valuable. So thank you so much for that, Anne Marie. At
Thank you.
eAssist, yeah, at eAssist, we understand that secure systems, proper documentation, and compliance with HIPAA and cybersecurity, best practices are not just IT responsibilities. We understand how important it is to safeguard patient trust and maintaining operational excellence through the entire revenue cycle process. So, our team is committed to helping dental practices stay compliant, accurate, and profitable from clean claims to secure ethical billing practices. So, if you're looking for a trusted partner to support your revenue cycle, then please keep eAssist top of mind. You can go to dentalbilling.com to learn more about eAssist and how we can help your practice as a third-party dental billing company. Thank you again for joining us today. I wanted to remind you there is no CE offered for this webinar. Thank you, Anne Marie, for empowering all of us to lead smarter and safer practices.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.